We'll continue this morning with our scripture reading, which comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 3, verses 15 through 22. Let us hear these words now as written in the Voice translation. John's bold message seized public attention, and many began wondering if John might himself be the anointed one promised by God. I baptize you with water, but one is coming, one far more powerful than I, one whose sandals I am not worthy to untie, who will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. He is coming like a farmer at harvest time, tools in hand to separate the wheat from the chaff. He will burn the chaff with unquenchable fire, and he will gather the wheat into his barn. He preached with many other provocative figures of speech and so conveyed God's message to the people. The time everything. But John's public preaching ended when he confronted Herod, the ruler of Galilee, for his many corrupt deeds, including taking Herodias, the ruler's sister-in-law, as his own wife. Herod responded by throwing John into prison. But before John's imprisonment, when he was still preaching and ritually cleansing the people through baptism in the Jordan River, Jesus also came to him to be baptized. As Jesus prayed, the heavens opened, and the Holy Ghost came upon him in a physical manifestation that resembled a dove. A voice echoed out from heaven, "You are my Son, the Son I love, and you and I take great pleasure." God still speaks into our world today. Thanks be to God.
As I invite the Guatemala service team members to come up and take their seats, they're going to share what it means to them to live out their faith in service. And as we talk about the baptism of Jesus, and we talk about baptism as one of the two sacraments that we celebrate in our church, baptism is an outward and visible symbol of an inward grace, an opportunity where we symbolically come into the family of God. And with each one of us, as we're baptized, we come into that sense of, you are my beloved. I love you. You bring me so much joy. Those are the words that God speaks upon Jesus and upon each one of us. The words we so dearly need to hear. Today, in a little while, I'm going to invite you to renew your baptismal covenant. But before we get there, we're going to hear about how these folks have that sense of God's love with them and how they live to bring out that sense of God's love to others. Well, many of them they're at very different levels of their faith. They're at very different levels of their experiences of this Guatemala service, but each one of them share something. And I'll let you figure that out as we hear from them today. The Guatemala service teams, at least through me, have started back in 2011. I experienced my first trip to Guatemala. It was a week-long immersion trip when I was in seminary to become a pastor. I went with nothing of a holy intention at all. I went because I love to travel, I love to see new places, I love to serve. And by taking that 1-week trip, I got a whole class worth of credit. And I needed that. I was the mom of 3 children, working full-time at Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I was just a little busy. I remember right before I left, not being prepared for the trip, suddenly being quite scared. So our intentions were to go on the trip for a week, and to come back, we had to preach about the trip in our home church, which for me was Stratham Community Church, and share and just, educate others around what we did. And I'm thinking, well, that's easy. I can do that. That's nothing. That's awesome. Check, check, check. I had no idea that the experience would change my life, and it did. After that first trip so many years ago, I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. I didn't realize what an empathetic person I was until I got there and came back with a sense of dark clouds and almost a sense of like depression because of the sadness I saw. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I thought I couldn't deal with it again. Until it came time for the next year, and I'll never forget being at Stratham Community Church and sharing at that time that there was an opportunity to go on a Guatemala mission, and I was co-leading with another person, and if someone would like to go, and I thought, this is my chance, no one's going to really want to go, and I'm going to get out of it. And a whole bunch of hands were raised, and I said, oh my goodness, here we go. And here we go. There's been hundreds of people that have gone along with me, and this year I am just beyond thrilled that my daughter Allie is taking on a leadership role, and I'm not going. But the team is going without me, and I'm so thrilled. We serve at a mission called Salud y Paz, which means health and peace. And we serve the people of the rural highlands of Guatemala. It's about 3 hours from Guatemala City on very remote roads that twist and turn like none other you've seen or experienced in your life. Wouldn't you say that's true? Sometimes you wonder how the chicken bus is getting through it. We have a school for pre-K through second grade. We have medical clinics, and we serve as construction teams. I've led teams that have been both medical and construction, the years that we've had doctors with us, and most recently more just construction. The medical teams serve in a different rural village every day, and we set up like a medical triage unit where we do triage, primary care, and pharmacy. Probably the medical team for me has been some of the most intense work as I sat with many people, with many interpreters, and heard their stories. The construction team has pushed us, and the construction work has pushed us beyond what we thought we could ever do. In the blazing sun, which some of us don't take so well, me, and heat, and dust, and dirt, and grime. But there's been many laughs and many tears and many prayers and so much joy. Salud y Paz is an organization that's near and dear to my heart. I've been serving on the board for the last 6 years. I just took this year, and I'm taking a break from doing that after serving 2 consecutive terms, and I know I'll be serving another term, just not right now. Casey Settergren is on the board of Salud y Paz, and serving her first term, and maybe going into her second, we'll see. But it's an organization that's well run, that is just exceptional at the way it serves all people, and I can't say enough good things about it. So with that, it's a little touchstone into Guatemala, a touchstone into the service mission that we do. If you have more questions during fellowship time, you can ask any team member or me, or you'll notice us by our Guatemala garb that we're wearing today. And some of you who are here in the pews and tuning in from home are alumni. You've been before, but maybe aren't going this year. So lots of people here that have been impacted. So I have a few questions for the panel. I asked them all to come up and share, and I thought a panel would be easiest for us. And I'm going to ask you, as you answer the question, to first introduce yourself and talk about where you're from, how you got involved in Guatemala, and maybe if you've been a couple of times, once, or many times, whatever it is, explain yourself. And then the first question I have for you is, why have you devoted a week or more of your time, around $2,500, which I think is what the fee is this year? Maybe you paid differently if you went on a different trip. Plus several hours in pre-trip meetings to serve in this way. And we'll start with Jake Brooks.
Hi, my name is Jake Brooks. I don't think it comes as a surprise how I got involved with the Guatemala trip. I think most of you know. If you don't, I'm Allie's fiance and Patty's future son-in-law, so I think that's pretty obvious. But hearing exactly what you all just heard from Patty for several years before going on my first trip, I knew it would be incredibly impactful, and we'll touch more on it, but it very much was. As far as why I chose, other than hearing, how amazing of an experience it was for both Allie and Patty, I think service is an enormous piece of this church and faith as a whole for me. I think it's kind of putting your money where your mouth is and giving back to people that really resonates with what I believe Jesus' teachings were. So, yeah.
I'm David Bryan, and I would have to say the biggest reason that I'm going back to Guatemala this year is because I went last year. You probably want me to answer why I went last year, right?
Sure.
Well, the biggest reason I went last year is it was about the 800th time Pastor Patty had asked me to go. So I've actually been at this church now, I think it's this month, 8 years. And in all seriousness, she had asked me to go a few times, and my son and I attend this church, and I'm a banker, and I could always come up with a scheduling reason not to go. And last year, or I suppose it was a combination of not being able to come up with a scheduling excuse and just wanting to go, wanting to experience the time there with my son. I'm a New Hampshire boy, but I've traveled a little bit. I had never been to Central America. And similar to what Jake said, I feel I've been very fortunate in my life. And I know enough to know, I'm old enough, as you can see, and I've been to a couple of rodeos to know that you have to do, you can read the news stories and you can watch the documentaries, but you have to have the experience and go to these places and get a perspective check. I think you have to have the soul to want to give back, as Jake said, and that's what it was about for me, and that's what it'll be about going forward and going again.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Yvonne Sedegren, and I'm from the Living Water United Methodist Church in Elliott, Maine. My story might sound a little selfish because I went to Guatemala because the lovely woman, Casey, who is on the board and helping lead the team this year, was a challenging teenager. And raising a teenager in faith, as we all know, can be a challenge. But Patty was our pastor at the time and said, anybody want to go to Guatemala? And my heart is, I'm a wanderer and a traveler. But more importantly, my daughter leaned over and said, can we go? And I went, sure. And then I went, oh my God, a week traveling with my daughter. So that faith journey, though both Caitlin and I have a different faith journey, taught us how to respect each other. And it was significant because in Guatemala, they actually give you so many more gifts than we bring to them. They have very, very little, but that whole story of the widow with a penny gave it all. The Guatemalans show you that. I return to Guatemala every year, which is now probably my 10th or 11th, because sometimes you need to be reminded of all the gifts we have here. I try to graciously live every day. But when you go to Guatemala and you are in service, it grounds me to live where God calls me. And he calls me to Guatemala, and he calls me to live in service.
Good morning. I'm Christina Cochran, and last year was the first year I went. I'm unable to go this year. But it worked out that it was during a school vacation for me because I'm an assistant principal at the elementary school in town, so that was perfect. And my husband was able to graciously take our two little kids during that time to so I could enjoy this, because it's been a lifelong dream of mine to do a service trip. My hometown church in Massachusetts, where I grew up, they often did trips to Haiti, was our place where we supported and everything, and I had long dreamed of going there on one of their mission trips, but it just didn't pan out. And so this was a lifelong dream of mine of having to do a service trip. And I still remember I was very integral in getting funds raised for our church to send to Haiti, because we did the same type of thing. It was working with a school, hence probably why I'm in education. And I was integral in coming up with events to do that, and often raise my own money to send down to Haiti. And I still have some of those letters. They're obviously in French that I can't read, but from the kids who I supported there. So this was just a dream of mine to do, and I hope to go back at some point.
Thank you. So next question for all of you is, how has your experience in service in Guatemala impacted you?
Other than lifelong friends and a fantastic poncho, I think what these guys have said so far has rung true for me. It's having a reality check on what your life is here. It's understanding that on your worst days, you have things available to you that other people may never have, period. And I think that when you do that, it's kind of impossible not to appreciate the little things a little bit more and slow down a little bit. And it just allows you to come back and, I think, treat life with more empathy for both yourself and others, and continue to feel like you want to give back here and go back again.
You can't really say it a lot better than that. I would have to say that the impact for me is, again, very similar. I had some idea of what to expect when I got there last year. Not a great idea, obviously, because I hadn't experienced it, but the first morning I woke up, and I get up fairly early. I do some back exercises to get myself moving, and the sun's up early there. I looked out the window. I mean, it was probably 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I look out the window, and it just hit me in the face right away. I mean, I saw people carrying on their backs more weight than I could probably pull in a wagon. And I just said, wow. Harrison wasn't quite up yet, but I made sure that when he got up, he saw it too, and he realized it. And then the week just catapulted from there. The impact is that, again, truly realizing that, and I think Yvonne started to say it, these people have nothing, but they have everything, and they give it to you. I mean, they give it back, and it's really had a profound effect on my life.
You guys don't have all day for me to say how it's affected my life, so a few little high points. Raised in New England, Catholic, and then Methodist once I got married. Sharing your faith outside the world always felt a little uncomfortable. It felt like you were trying to convert someone or change someone, and I'm someone who really believes in accepting people for where they were. Going to Guatemala and doing service makes other people comfortable about talking to me about my faith. And so that it is a inlet for people to see that the joy and the peace I have comes from a strong spiritual base, a faith in God that we're doing what we're supposed to. It became a growth step for me in that I realized that I didn't have to have an excuse to talk about my faith. It also continued my faith journey as I'm in my final semester of getting my master's in theology, in Franciscan theology, that is all very strongly service-based. So Guatemala hugely changed my family life, but it also helped me grow into a faith that I always had and I knew for myself, but became comfortable and sharing with others.
I think everyone on this panel kind of spoke to, how it changed themselves, which is, I agree with them totally. I think one thing that I've always been a very reflective person, but I see myself reflecting a lot more now. And there are just certain moments that just seeing the culture there, how they took the littlest things. I remember I was a big sifter there, and there was a huge pile of sand, and we had to continually sift that. And when that was sifted, it was, okay, now we have to sift it again with a smaller one. And it was using just anything. They used any size pebbles they could in the different layers of the cement there. And just thinking of how I can do that here and what I can use or reuse and everything was just life-changing. And then one other thing is I found myself brought to tears at moments, but not so much for any pity of the culture there. It was more so in that they just reveled in being able to take the smallest things and make a mountain out of it. And I was able to share my music with the children there by bringing my trumpet. And it just struck me how, when I first started playing, there was such an innocent, hesitation to come over and listen, and then even to touch the instrument, which I had no problem with. And it was something that I've experienced the opposite here is, a lot of the kids, when I bring in the trumpet, they want to, play it, or, they'll come right over. And it was that innocence of, hey, can I touch that? What is that? How is it making the music? And that was just, it brought a different perspective for me.
Thank you. Allie Marston, do you want to share?
My name is Allie. Thank you for being here and for listening to us share how Guatemala has impacted our faith. And I will say I don't really like public speaking, so please bear with me. I consider my faith journey to be pretty unique. As the child of a pastor, I've been around faith for quite a while, but I will admit I'm not really someone that goes with the flow or follows the crowd. So for me, finding what faith meant, for me personally, took me a little while, and it didn't come naturally to me necessarily. I remember my mom's first trip to Guatemala. I was 10 years old, and I was very interested. From a young age, I've always really enjoyed helping people, and this felt like the ultimate experience of helping people. And when she first decided to start leading trips, I was counting down the days until I was 16 and would be able to finally experience what my mom has been talking about for so long. My first trip to Guatemala was really life-changing for me, and I truly believe that it shaped who I am today, and I knew immediately that I wanted to go back and I wanted to make Guatemala a part of my life. The summer after my first trip, I spent a month in Guatemala by myself, living with some of the friends that we've made who have also come up and visited us, and I spent that month working in the clinic, in the school, working with other teams, and just really experiencing Guatemala in a really deep way. This experience really helped me to define my faith, and it cemented that faith for me is being a good neighbor and truly doing anything I can to understand other people's lives and experiences and be of service where I can. I returned to Guatemala several times after that summer, each time growing deeper into my faith. This year, I have the privilege to lead a team to Guatemala for the first time. In the process of going from team member to leader, I feel that my faith has really deepened, and my focus has really shifted from what the trip means to me and what I feel like I'm going to get out of it to what I hope it means to the team and how I can truly be of service to the team to make sure they get out as much as they can from the trip. One of the things that I believe makes these trips so special is that we're always going to Guatemala with the intention of working alongside the people and not going into it thinking that we know exactly the way things should be. I think in our day-to-day lives, it's really easy to feel like we have the definite answer for things, and there's no way that our neighbors could have an answer that might make more sense. And I feel like my time in Guatemala has really changed my opinion on this. I hope to be a more open-minded person who's accepting of other people's opinions, and I really hope that it's something that the team gets out of it as well. And I feel like one of the amazing things about these trips is that I feel like I'm a better neighbor here in New Hampshire for the time that I've spent in Guatemala, and I think many Guatemala alumni would agree. And just as faith is a unique journey for each of us, I know that our trips to Guatemala are unique for each of us as well, and I feel really blessed to have the opportunity to share that with our team and many teams for years to come. And the money that we're raising through our fundraising efforts this weekend means that we're able to share this experience with others who may need some financial assistance in order to attend. For me, I think this is the natural next step in the growth of One Heart as we aim to give as many people as possible the opportunity to open the door of faith through service. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you.